Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DMCast. Comics, card games, and more right at your fingertips. This is the first episode of the new version of the DMCast. I'm your host, Nate, and with me I have Tony Houst.
Welcome back to DMCast 3.0?
3.0?
3.7?
I don't necessarily know exactly how
Mach
many versions.
3.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that.
But this is a new version of the podcast, and in more of a podcast format. It will be a bi-weekly posting video series as well. This will be up on YouTube as well as, hopefully, if I can figure it out, on anywhere else that you can find podcasts. So we'll see how that works out. But this is mostly for the store. It's for you to check in, kind of see the new things that are happening with the store, if there's anything that's coming out, and then we'll basically have main topics that we can talk about. So that kind of brings me into the main topic for today, which is going to be Unfinity and the Warhammer 40k decks that are going to be releasing for Magic the Gathering, the Universes Beyond. Yeah. The show format specifically, just to kind of really quickly go over it, we're going to have the first section is our Newsies section, which is basically just a talking about the store, talking about anything that's coming up, if there are events, new releases, things like that. Then we'll have our main topic, an end card, and it's a pretty short and sweet format. There's not going to be too much to it, except for like if the main topic has a lot, which today we have quite a bit to talk about, just because there was a lot for Unfinity and a lot for Warhammer.
Double set drop.
Yeah. Go. So, without further ado, let's just head on to the Newsies section. We've got a lot of big events coming up this month with both our Magic Store Championship as well as the 1K qualifier tournaments. So it's going to be a really big month, especially because the Store Championship has that Omnath promo, right?
Yes. So that's the store championship that top 8 gets the weird like Untitled Goose Game looking golden goose.
Yeah,
that's
so cool.
stealing a fish, which is great. And then you have that Omnath, which the regular Magic card of that has like 400 words of rules text on it. This one, no text whatever. If you don't know what it does, you don't know what it does.
You gotta have your phone with the Oracle text right next to you.
Yeah, so it's just big Kool-Aid man guy punching a forest.
You need to bring that to a tournament and have somebody call a judge so that they can read the Oracle text.
That's the one thing I like about these is that if you're the one that wins that, you've already proven that, hey, I probably know what this card does, especially if you won a modern tournament. But for ours, you get to navigate the field of Dominaria United Limited, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you will at least know what some triggers do, but not necessarily Omnath.
It's a Dominaria United sealed for our Manchester store, and it is going to be, I think we said Kamigawa Draft for ours Conquered?
I think it's still Dominaria Draft on that.
Still Dominaria Draft? Cool.
Yep.
It would be hilarious if a Omnath Elementals deck, well, it wouldn't be possible because we're doing sealed, but Correct. It would be funny if we did a constructed event and Omnath won the Omnath.
If we did modern, I would show up with Omnath and then be like, hey, can I sleeve this up? We all know I'm going to win already. I'm not that good at modern. Don't worry.
So moving on to the Pioneer RCQs. So we are going to be having 2 RCQs because this is double midnight. That is going to be the weekend of October 22nd. So on that Saturday, October 22nd, we will be having the Pioneer RCQ in our Concord location. That's going to be at 12 p.m. And on the 23rd, that next day, we will be having another one here in Manchester that will also be at 12. If you need any more information, please go to our Facebook, which is Magic at DM Comics on Facebook, or just at DM Comics. If you want to follow our main page, that's going to have all of our events on it. You can check out all the information there. Some other stuff, if you are watching this when this video releases, the Warhammer decks and the Unfinity set are going to be releasing tomorrow. Stuff will be available at 10 a.m. at both stores, so please make sure to pop in and grab your stuff, because it's all looking pretty spicy.
Oh yeah, we got the stuff dropping right at 10. We're going to have events throughout the weekend, which is great. I think
we have it's a big like carnival thing going on.
Yep. I just put together a ton of like sideshow games, what you figure that you'd be playing at like the Deerfield Fair and that kind of stuff there. So we're going to be transforming part of the front room into a little bit of a carnival. So as you're coming in, you got coins that you can play for tickets. The pricing for this event is not in packs, it's in tickets.
Oh gosh.
That you can spend on packs. So we're just going all out with that kind of stuff. So that's what we're doing here in Manchester. Conquered, they're just doing the ticket system. They're not going all crazy with that, but we still wanted to have some fun and make it a little goofy with stuff there. So yes, you can save up a bunch of tickets to save up for a plushie. That's the most important thing about those events. Plus, this kicks off Warhammer Commander Celebration Week. So we're going to be doing, we have a bunch of weekly Commander events. All those events, we're going to be doing additional rolls for promos. And while supplies last, if you are running a Warhammer themed deck, whether that's straight out of the box or you made a Eldar or Tau deck or something from scratch, you're like, this is what
tribal.
Yeah, or something like that. If you have a Warhammer themed deck, you get the Fabricate promo, which is pretty cool.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to come in with a Warhammer deck because I definitely want one of those.
Yeah.
That Fabricate promo looks sweet.
It is.
All right. Moving aside from Magic for just a minute, as far as on the comic book side for Double Midnight, we are going to be having an exclusive cover for the Dark Ride comic book series that's going to be coming out. The first issue is going to be coming out tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow we got the
Wednesday.
Yes,
yesterday when this video releases.
Yep. So yesterday time.
Today.
Real excited. It's been a little bit since we've had a DMC exclusive cover. This one's really cool. You might notice that there are some familiar faces in the corner here. Not the first appearance of them, because I think we had a weird like Marvel one where they literally just posted a photo there. Not the first appearance of the store, because I think that was Godzilla stepping on us. But you
I don't think I've seen that one.
That one's great. They did a variant of every single store. They took like the logo of the store and Godzilla stepping on it. So you have like Midtown Comics, all the like biggest stores that you ever saw there. So there's
That's awesome.
Some people are like, I want to collect all 200 something stores that are there. But this one of a kind, just us and some very familiar faces of, is that Scott? Is that Chris? Is that Brett? Is that some handsome fellow with a ponytail? I was not consulted, but I'm gonna say that's me with my back to the camera.
As a quick interlude for what you can expect out of Dark Ride, Devilland has been the world's most premier horror-themed amusement park for over 50 years, home to the scariest ride ever created, The Devil's Due. But when lifelong fan Owen Seasons begins his first day on the job, he will discover the true horrors happening behind the scenes, the truth about the park's reclusive creator, Arthur Dante, and that the job of his dreams might just be a living nightmare. So make sure to check out the comic book and subscribe to that series. If you need to, please make sure to talk to us and we can get you all subscribed through Comic Hub. I think the last thing for our newsy section is just the pretty much the same day tomorrow as of when this video is releasing, the Werewolf by Night Halloween special is going to be releasing that tomorrow.
Okay. I'm excited for that. Figuring out when to watch that is going to be tough because we got all the busy stuff going there.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
But I'm a big horror fan. I love the old Universal kind of stuff there. Nosferatu was one of my favorites. I remember when they did the Wolfman remake back in the like mid 2000s. I'm like, oh, so excited. And it was good, but it wasn't the same kind of feel. So I'm excited for Marvel to kind of dip their toes in with that. And open up more of the horror characters, because also I'm a huge Moon Knight fan, and Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight are hand in hand. They're two halves of a coin.
Yeah, speaking of Moon Knight and stuff like that, I think we have is there a new Midnight Suns?
So the Midnight Suns team that's right now does not include Moon Knight.
Okay.
So that's a different subsection of heroes. There's another like spooky witchcraft kind of team that has
well, Moon Knight Moon Knight has his own comic books that are kind of like there's like Moon Knight and I think it was Miss Marvel, and then Moon Knight and Venom. Or no, that's Miss Marvel. And
Miss Marvel was doing a bunch of team ups this past month. Yeah.
Moon Knight has the one that's like the red, white, and blue.
Black, white, and blood.
Black, white, and blood. Okay.
And that's very similar to a annual where it's like kind of off the beaten path, a bunch of anthology of different stories. Very funny, very different. So if you like a lot of like Deadpool comics, this is Moon Knight where he's a little bit more unhinged and leans more into the like ridiculous Deadpool kind of stuff.
Well, if you're wanting to check any of those out, please make sure to come into the store and ask us about them. as well as when the Werewolf by Night comes out. If you are interested in some more of those like horror-like stories, we can both recommend stuff that are Marvel related, DC related, even some that are kind of indie comics, because getting anybody else into indie comics and some of like the horror ones, especially if it's what is it, like Something is Killing the Children.
Yep.
You've got The Nice House on the Lake. I think that one's DC, right? That's DC Black Label is
Yeah.
Housing on the Lake.
Yep. That Dark Ride is
Dark Ride,
definitely feels like it's right out of that playbook there. Bunch of really cool ones.
So definitely come and check that out. So on to our main topic for today, or at least one of them. We're going to talk about some Unfinity stuff. So the biggest talking point about the set right now is that this is the first black bordered unset. And that does not mean all of the cards are legal.
No. So what they saw with previous unsets is that people would get really excited about like the full art lands, pick those up, and then they would play with the unset stuff for like a draft or just to play with some buddies. And then after that, they would literally throw them in the garbage. So you have all these cards that bunch of time and effort was put into them. You have some amazing art on these cards, but people aren't playing them.
Yeah.
So they looked at stuff and went, well, what can we actually make that people are going to want to play? And in some like commander play groups, like if you play with me half the time, I go, hey, I have like one or two silver border cards.
Like one or two.
Are you guys good with that? Most people found that the more playable cards that aren't doing things outside the norm, that gets closer to like regular gameplay. So you have stuff where it's
you're like throwing stuff onto the table.
Throwing stuff, playing games under the table. Maybe that stays silver border. But if you have your stuff where you're just melding two cards together, well, we did that in Innistrad.
Yeah.
We're doing that in
Brothers War.
We're doing that in some upcoming sets. So more stuff like that where it's like, okay, dice rolling. Dice rolling was a like just unset thing for a while, and then D&D just went, no, we're just gonna roll D20.
Now it is actually a mechanic. So like bringing back dice rolling, and you can actually take a lot of those cards that normally would be a silver bordered dice rolling card, and you can bring them into, maybe with a couple tweaks, into the realm of like the possibility of a real card.
Yep.
Speaking of which, we have the Acorn Symbol. The Acorn Symbol for Black Border is kind of the dividing line between what is legal and what is not. And as far as legality goes, we are talking eternal formats. So we're talking stuff like Commander, Pauper, Legacy. I can't think of any more eternal formats. Vintage, thank you. It's technically legal, and I don't know if I've ever seen a card that comes out in the past couple of years that has really affected Vintage.
Ask Ollie when he comes in. He's our resident Vintage aficionado. Ollie is the only person who's ever lent me a Vintage deck to play.
Oh boy,
and
I would not even want to touch that.
If I didn't know him that well, I wouldn't have. But it is a very fun format with a lot of weird stuff going on with it. Usually Vintage is played with a bunch of proxies, like usually 10 to 20, and half of those are going to be the Power 9.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's...
So the Acorn Symbol. The Acorn Symbol itself is something that you will see in place of the Hollow Stamp. For rares and mythics, and then on commons and uncommons, you will still see it, but it will be down in the corner, kind of where, like, if you had a mystery booster card or the list, where that planeswalker symbol would be, that's where the acorn is going to be for those cards.
The acorn is in the center.
It is in the center?
It's in the center where the hollow stamp usually is.
But it's not a hollow stamp.
It's a hollow stamp on rares. It is a printed gray acorn symbol on your commons and uncommons.
Sweet.
So you have it in a slightly different spot. The 12 different places that we're looking for symbols. Is there a planeswalker? Is there an acorn?
Yeah.
Acorn basically means the exact same stuff that silver border meant. It's just a different way to do it. And that way you can have a borderless card with acorn. You can have your regular border, black border with acorn.
Yeah, and some of these borderless cards, like even if they're not legal, I mean, I'm probably going to play some of them in Commander. Some of them are probably going to be my Commander. And they all have some borderless versions that look really nice.
The showcase that they chose, because the whole theme of this set is it's a carnival in space doing a retro sci-fi kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the showcase frames have this Jetsons, Buck Rogers kind of feel. you have these very geometric, splashy kind of shapes that look like they're straight out of the like 50s and 60s kind of thing.
So some of the things that we have in the Unfinity set itself, we have some ticket counters, we have stickers, attractions, some hat themes, dice rolling, wordplay, and then having to deal with like people that are outside of the game. I think some of the most confusing ones for people are going to be the ticket counters and the stickers. So each pack that you open will come with a small little sticker sheet. I wish I had an example, but we don't get those. There are 4 kinds of stickers. There is name, art, ability, and then power and toughness stickers. Some of the cards can you can place a sticker on a permanent, and that is going to be how you take the stickers off of those cards and put them directly onto your cards, which I don't necessarily know how I feel about that.
We will see when we get our shipment in and finish checking everything and then open up a pack and see, okay, what does
like, are these like acrylic stickers so they're not really going to do a lot of damage, or are they like actual stickers that like you're not going to be able to take off?
So far from what we've been told, is that the stickers are using a post-it style adhesive that you can like put back on. You can put back onto your sticker sheet, so you're popping it from here back to there. So we will see whenever there's something new technology-wise. I try to test it out. So as soon as we get this in, I'm just going to be sticking stuff on there. I'm going to go, cool, have a bunch of Unfinity stickers on my sweatshirt, and then see if I can put them back on and if they'll still stick on the cards, see if it's ripping anything off the card. So by the time Friday hits and we're actually playing with the cards, we'll know whether it's actually safe to sticker the cards unsleeved or not.
And
I would recommend probably sleeves.
Do not sticker any card that is not yours.
It is in the rules not to.
It is specifically in the rules that you are not allowed to sticker a card that you do not own. Yes. Like it is in the rules. So just please be very careful about that.
Even if it's not printed on the card and I'm playing against Nate and I active treason his Black Lotus and I go and it says that I can put a sticker on his Black Lotus, I cannot.
No.
It is in the fine print with the text, not allowed to happen.
So with the stickers, you'll notice that on the side of some of them, you can see a small little, what looks like a ticket. That is a new kind of counter that you can get called a ticket counter. There are cards in the game that will say that you can get ticket counters, like the card Robo Pinata. And most of the time it is paired with the sticker mechanic. So you will be most likely gaining a ticket and then immediately having a way to put a sticker onto the cards itself. And some of the stickers themselves do have a ticket requirement right next to them. And you will need to spend that amount of ticket counters in order to place that kind of sticker onto whatever permanent you need to do when you go to place the sticker.
The stickers that don't require tickets are names and art stickers. Your art stickers are silly ones like you can put hats on things, give a stuffed squirrel to the main character that you have, change the name to...
A lot of them are hats, because we do have a hat theme throughout the set.
Yeah. You could add stuff like Phyrexian to like fill in the blank on some of the cards and their names, or just add multiple different words. There's some wordplay stuff that cares about how many certain letters show up in different titles of cards. So that's different ways that you can manipulate that. The ability and power toughness always require the tickets.
Yeah, and the power and toughness will override the power and toughness on the card. I'm not necessarily sure exactly how that works as far as layers, like whether that counts as something that is setting the power and toughness, or whether it is a part of the card.
It's technically not a counter, so it should just be a power toughness setting thing, but we have a way to track it with a sticker. Unless we want to be adding stickers into layers. But I don't know if that's what we're going to want to be doing. I'm going to make sure that phone goes up.
Yep. So moving on to the next thing is attractions. Attractions are a new kind of permanent, a new card that exists in the Unfinity set, and they are artifacts. They are artifacts that do count as permanents. So when you go to open an attraction, you will take an attraction and put it onto the field. It exists. It is not like the contraptions or some of the other stuff that we've done in the unset, where you have a separate deck and then you create something, but it's not necessarily like a part of your board. This is
Contraptions still kind of work. They were artifacts and you could destroy them.
okay.
So same with this one. These are also artifacts and you can destroy them.
Yes, but they do go in their own deck, like the contraptions. So the attraction deck must have at least 10 attractions in it, and has to be singleton. But that is different during any limited formats. Limited formats, you have to have, I think it's a minimum of 3, and you can have as many as you want of any specific kind. One of the really cool things about attractions is that there are different versions of every attraction. So if you look at an attraction in the right next to the text box onto the right, you're going to see a bunch of circles. Well, I'll have a picture. The circles themselves will be labeled 1 through 6, and you'll have some of them being lit up. The ones, yeah, like this.
I'm an artist.
The ones that are lit up are the ones that you can go to that attraction through rolling a d6. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you will roll a d6. If you roll the number that is lit up on the attraction, you get to visit that attraction. And something to note is that 1 is always one is always not lit up, and 6 is always lit up. So if you roll a 6, you're visiting every attraction.
You have your crit success and your crit fail ready
that
to go.
seems like it could be busted if you have the combination of the right attractions. You just go, cool, I roll a 6 and I win.
What's really cool is outside of limited, once you start combining all the dice manipulation stuff from the last set as well, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be rolling 6s very, very often. So you could just have decks that set up you are going to 1 million attractions every single turn.
Yeah. So in order to visit an attraction, you need to first open that attraction. So cards like Mira the Magnificent will say open an attraction. So you then reveal the top card of your attraction deck, which does need to be shuffled before you play. And then you will place that card onto the battlefield. So you don't necessarily get to choose your attraction unless you have specifically drafted only a couple of the exact ones that you want. So you are going to have a little bit of randomness with your attractions, but I mean, I'm pretty sure you can still make them really good, because there are attractions and attraction cards that will open them that are legal.
Yes.
There are some without the Acorn border, so this will definitely be played in Commander. I think Mira the Magnificent is not an Acorn card. I'm pretty sure she's not. But even if she's not, there are plenty of people who are going to be playing her as the commander and will be wanting to use the attractions. So just please be aware of how they work, because that is something that...
Mira is regular.
Mira is legal. Yeah, she's really good.
And that's when you cast an instant or sorcery spell
open
from your
an attraction.
hand, open an attraction.
Yeah,
so.
You're going to open all 10 of your attractions real quick. If you're... Well, I know, at least I will, because spell slinging.
Yep.
You just cast a couple of cantrips and you're good. One of the last things to talk about, there are hats in here. There are dice rolling. There are some wordplay cards. There are cards that care about specific words, and the spelling bee card. I think the spelling bee is reveal the top. Look, when you attack, you look at the top card of your opponent's library. You choose a word on there, and if they can't spell it, then they don't get it.
Yep.
As well as some things that deal with people outside of the game. So, as is commonplace with an unset, there are a lot of cards that do things outside of the game, like flicking a card onto the table with the what is it, Devil Knievel, Devil K Neville?
Devil K Neville
Devil
or
K
Devil
Neville,
Knievel.
Yeah.
You have phone a friend, where
yeah.
you literally have to call somebody, preferably somebody that doesn't know magic.
Oh, yeah, that's always the best one.
And you just read out I have something important. I'm gonna read out the stuff there. It's just like
I really need you to choose this for me.
Oh, okay. Draw 3 cards, take an extra turn. Scry 7. What does scry mean? I don't have time.
I can't tell you that.
Yep.
I need you to choose.
I need you to choose. Sure. Extra turn. Sweet. Cool.
Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
So this can include anything like getting a card from outside of the game, taking a picture of the card and making a pose that you can then post on Twitter.
Yep.
Starting a bidding war, and we'll get to that when we talk about our favorite cards. But these are all prefaced with an understanding of consent. If there is someone that does not want you taking pictures of their cards or touching their phone, you are not able to do so. It is written into the rules that there needs to be consent in order for these things to happen.
Think of unsets like you think of your fun board games of everybody's opting into what's going on. And as soon as somebody's like, I don't really want to be playing this game, you should stop playing that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So moving to our favorite cards in the set. For me, my favorite card in the set is the Most Dangerous Gamer. It is a 4-mana spell, 2, a black, and a green for a legendary creature, Human Gamer Guest. It is a 2/2 with Death Touch. Whenever the Most Dangerous Gamer enters the battlefield or attacks, open an attraction. And then whenever you open an attraction, put a 1/1 counter on the Most Dangerous Gamer. Whenever you claim the prize of an attraction, destroy target permanent. So it is a fairly good card in itself. But the reason that it is my favorite is just because it's a pro gamer. It's one of those people that like walks into a carnival and goes, cool, I know the tricks of every single attraction and I am going to win.
The art looks like a Fortnite skin.
It kind of does.
He's holding this giant stuffed unicorn, which clearly found an exploit with a crane game somewhere.
Yeah, well, and that's probably like a reference to the Despicable Me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so fluffy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I believe, Tony, your favorite card.
My favorite card is Exit Through the Grift Shop, which is a wonderful reference to a Banksy documentary, but it's also you go to exit through the gift shop. So it's a sorcery for 2 and a black. Yell, "Who wants a souvenir?" And announce the name of a non-land card in your graveyard. Who wants a souvenir? I got a rusty cat. Each player in an ungame can hear you. In an ungame, who can hear you? So here in the game room, everybody can hear me. But if there's somebody up front, they can't bid on it because they probably can't hear me. In a large event hall, it's whoever's in earshot. So I gotta get good at projecting when I'm in bigger events in the next coming month here. You start the bidding at 0. The high bidder loses life equal to the high bid. They copy the card and may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. If you didn't win the bid, because you can bid yourself, you gain life equal to the high bid and create that many treasure tokens. So basically, you auction off a card in your graveyard. Whoever bids the highest amount of life, they lose that life. You gain that life. You get that many treasures, unless it's you. And they get the card for free. Yeah, so I could have a Ulamog in my graveyard. Yeah. Somebody at a table all the way across here goes, I'm going to pay 20 life for this. Gets it, takes it. They win the game over there. I get 20 treasures and 20 life. So I'm excited for that. My favorite thing about this is my previous favorite unset card was Enter the Dungeon, which is the one that makes you play under the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one is very similar in that you're playing this weird sub game and you get out of this what you want to put into it. So this is one that if you're just like kind of, well, we're just playing, I play Exit Through Gift Shop, do you want to do whatever? You're not going to get that much out of it. No, but if you really want to sell it, if you want to be the showman, which I mean, if you're if you ask me for deck advice ever, you know how I like really getting excited about different cards and everything there. So I could have Rusty Cat in the graveyard. That's not a card yet. Needs to be. Next sunset. Let's go. Rusty Cat.
No, it's going to be a Cars secret lair, except it's going to be Rusty's.
So that's just a really fun one of like, oh, cool. If you want to be like the full-on carnival barker, you can really make the most out of. I got a grizzly bear. Anybody want a grizzly bear? You want a grizzly bear? Okay, going once, going twice, go to the sold to the one. Man in the hat in the back there.
So you've really got to work at it. But
Yep.
there is an infinite combo with this card. Because of course,
as there are with most of the Acorn cards.
yes, this is an Acorn card, which is the one thing that I'm really sad about is that I can't play this in Commander technically, but I will. I will definitely have a game where I play this.
Yep.
But there is an infinite combo of having 3 separate people and basically just going in a circle to essentially bid life and keep copying the card as long as both of you have it in your graveyard. So it's very weird, but there is definitely a way to break this card.
Yeah. The funny part that I keep forgetting is that your opponents can bid on this too, not just other people.
Yeah, you can have a bidding war with just your opponent.
Yeah,
that's all
so
you need.
we keep on thinking about the bigger outside the game thing, but it's like your opponent can just outmatch you, which is really funny.
So, going on to kind of like what we think is like one of the most powerful cards in the set. Granted, this one is not legal in Eternal formats because it would actually be the most powerful card if it was legal. I am talking about Soul Performer. It is a 4 mana, 2 and green for a 2/2 elf performer. Tap, add, tap, tap. Activate only once each turn. So essentially what that means is you can tap the Soul Performer and you add 2 tap symbols into your mana pool. The next time that you would go to tap a permanent, you can then instead use that tap symbol, so you do not have to tap that permanent. So it's if I have a pinger that is going to ping somebody for 1, I tap the Soul Performer, and instead of tapping the pinger, I just use one of the taps that's floating in my mana pool. But I don't know if this is added to your mana pool.
It's not to your mana pool.
So does it go away as steps and phases?
Probably does. Yeah.
It probably should.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's I didn't use because it's add tap tap. So I'm assuming that that's short for add that to your mana pool.
Yeah.
So then it should empty when you go through steps and phases. There's no specific rulings for it yet.
You're just storing something that isn't mana in your mana pool. So it's like, here, let me throw a brick of dynamite into your mana pool or something.
Right. Yeah, so it should go away as steps and phases, and we'll double check on that. Please check the rulings for that. Don't go into your pre-release saying, well, Nate and Tony said it probably does this, because we're saying probably. We do not have an official source.
Yeah, we'll do some more reading as we get closer to this kind of stuff. With a lot of the unset Acorn things, you're going to have variants of rulings from store to store, table to table, and that is by design. Yeah. That doesn't mean that any one judge is wrong or right with this. It's to the best of their ability, because the designers are making cards that don't make sense, that aren't congruent with the rules the way that they are written. There's a general consensus of what's going on. Mark will post on his blog, hey, this is what we intended. This is how we intend for this to work. But if it's 2 a.m, there's 3 things going on. You got tappity tap going on here. You got stickers. You got contraptions. You got other stuff going on there. Whoever's your rules person that's trying to find a fair way to make that work, just go with what they say. And that's just going to be the best way to go. And if there's an argument between you and another person, just get a outside third party to go, okay, it works this way. And that's the easiest way to keep on going.
So Tony, your most powerful card.
My most powerful card is weirdly not Acorn, which reading this card looks like it should be. But this is Wicker Picker.
Yeah, I was surprised that this was not Acorn. Or Acorn, it did not have an Acorn symbol.
Wicker Picker is a 3 mana artifact creature, and that's very important for why this is powerful.
Yeah.
Scarecrow Guest. It's a 2/3. Creature spells you cast have Sticker Kicker 1. You may pay an additional 1 as you cast a creature spell. If you do, you get a sticker. You get a ticket. Then you may put a sticker on it. So the big thing with Wicker Picker is actually for Legacy and Vintage, because there are Mishra Workshop decks that make a ton of mana for artifacts.
Yeah.
This is an artifact. You are usually running a bunch of artifact creatures that are very quick or free to get out, and sometimes you have a lot of excess mana. So you can use that excess mana to cast Sticker Kicker on things. If you're doing that, you can sticker kicker your ornithopter that you're using to like up your like affinity count, and now you can have like a 9/5 ornithopter that you spent a bunch of tickets on because you cast a bunch of creatures prior to there. So this is just a potentially weird, wacky way to go. I don't think it's one that's going to like hold on and be like a format staple for all time.
At least it's cast. It's not ETB.
Yep. This is one that is just potentially weird where there might be a single weekend that somebody wins like a vintage or legacy championship with a wicker picker as a like 1 or 2 of in a shops list. And sticker shops is just such a funny idea. That's kind of where legacy and vintage is it's either the hyper super consistent decks or people who go, I understand that it's a very solved deck format. Let me try to switch up those 2 or 3 cards that I have and just turn things on their head. So
I need to see a vintage tournament where somebody's putting stickers on their cards, right across from Power 9.
Yep. For a while, like a lot of the decks were the same, and then like Oko came out, and people were like, oh, Oko's the fun like 1 or 2 of, and we'll see if it's good. And then turns out that Oko could make your Black Lotus actually swing for lethal. So you have weird things like that where every once in a while you'll have a card that is tried out as the 1 or 2 of silly, weird, oddball card. And sometimes it sticks around because it's really good. And this one could stick around.
Oh. So with that, moving on to our second topic for the day are the Warhammer 40k decks. So the Warhammer 40k decks is a Universes Beyond product, so that's going to be in the same vein as, I know we're getting the, the Lord of the Rings set, that's going to be modern legal,
That'll be like summer next year.
Oh boy, that's coming up faster than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So these cards are legal in all Eternal formats, much like a lot of the Unfinity cards, but they're mostly made for commander play because they're commander decks. Granted, some of these cards are powerful enough to like at least see play, and see if they're useful in stuff like Legacy and Vintage, and we'll get to that. There are 4 decks. There are the Forces of the Imperium, which is a white, blue, black deck that is going to be Esper colors. That is going to be all about, if you know a little bit about Warhammer 40k, the Imperium is it's called the Imperium of Man. It is the vast realms of humanity across the stars that are fighting against all of these demons, these giant swarm creatures, these undead Egyptian mummified robots. It is just humanity's last stand. You also have the Necron Dynasties, which is a mono black deck, which is it's a little weird to see a mono colored commander deck. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I'm glad that they chose it with Necrons because it just made sense for them to just be mono black. Like maybe blue would have been okay. The Necrons are basically, think weird Terminator robots. They're I'm kind of sad that they're not artifact creature skeleton because they look like just cast iron skeletons.
Yeah. And they are all like Egyptian themed. A lot of their stuff is like they have these large helms and big staffs, capes. It is
in the lore they found a way to like be essentially immortal by putting like their souls into these husks and that kind of stuff.
And they use their old gods that they used to worship and then usurped to gain immortality, and they have chained those gods and used them as a power source. It's metal is a good way to describe
Warhammer lore is just metal turned up to 40,000.
Got him. So we also have the Tyranid Swarm, which is a green, blue, and red. That is Temur colors. The Tyranids are, as far as like Warhammer 40k is concerned, the Tyranids are probably one of my favorite. I think when most of the time when you think of the Tyranids, you also kind of think of the Zerg from Warcraft.
Yep. Because the Zerg are just ported over
Warcraft,
from
Starcraft.
Yeah. StarCraft basically just took a look at Warhammer and went, neat, let's just copy your homework.
Well, I think originally StarCraft was supposed to be a Warhammer game.
Okay.
And they were supposed to be using the Tyranids, but something happened, and instead of doing that, because if you look at StarCraft, the main human forces, they look a lot like Space Marines.
Yep.
The Zerg look a lot like Tyranids, and I think it's because they were supposed to be
The Protoss look like the Tau. And, yep.
I think it was supposed to be one, but they just ended up something happened in the middle, and so StarCraft was like, cool, copy your friend's homework, but change it up enough to where you're not infringing on copyrights.
Yep.
So the last deck we have is the Ruinous Powers, which is a blue, black, and red deck that is Grixis colors, and this is all about chaos. This is the big the chaos demons and kind of
Chaos Marines and stuff. Yep.
Kind of combining all of that, because in Warhammer 40k there are 4 main gods of chaos, and it basically it's taking all of those and combining them into one deck. So you're gonna see different things from Slanesh to Nurgle. Oh gosh, there are 2 more that I am completely blanking on. Korn, the Blood God, and then there's one more that I am just fully not remembering the name. I'm scrolling through the list to see if I can find it. It's gonna be on a blue card. I know, because I've already seen the Sneech. Yeah, Sneech is the name, which is like the big mind over matter chaos god.
It looks like a purple parallax.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's actually Sneech. I think that's the Exalted Flamer. Sneech.
Okay.
So every card in this deck, in all of these decks, has new art. So that includes reprints. There are a lot of good reprints in these decks, and all of them have new art. That is crazy.
You have a soul ring for every single faction.
Oh my gosh.
With just very tailored to that faction art.
Arcane Signet as well.
Arcane Signet's fantastic. Yeah. The Dark Ritual, where it's literally like beetles like coming out of some old like skulls.
A lot of these have talismans in them as well.
Yep.
So we're getting those reprinted. So like kind of segueing into the reprints, some of the reprints that you'll see in these, starting with the Tyranid Swarm. Really good one for reprints that you're going to see. Hull Breach. I think the last printing of that was 2013 Commander. So it's been a hot minute. As well as Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales was reprinted in Double Masters 2022, but it's still a really good card. Even if it was recently reprinted, it's always good to just see more and more printings.
If it wasn't reprinted in this, because that deck focuses a lot on like +1/+1 counters, ability counters, that kind of stuff. Hardened Scales would have just gotten like super expensive.
People would have been wanting to slot it into this deck anyway.
Yeah, the Ozolith is a card that did go up because of this, so that's one that if you have a copy, that
Ozolith was already like $20.
Yep.
So
definitely swap that into there if you got one of those.
Moving on to Ruinous Powers, one of my favorites that's being reprinted, Past in Flames. The last time we saw this was Times Power Remastered, the spellbook decks, but the mainline set printing, or technically it was supplementary, was Modern Masters 2017.
Which was a lot further ago than I remember.
It's been a real hot minute since we have seen Past in Flames as like a printing, and the art on this looks sweet.
They had the Chandra spellbook a little bit ago.
That's what I was like. But the first the last big mainline set was MM17.
Yeah.
Or Modern Masters 2, however you want to say it. Yeah. Another one that you can see, Decree of Pain. It's been a while since we've seen that one as well. What did I write down as the
C17?
C17? Yeah. So again, it's been a hot minute. Decree of Pain, destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. That's pretty darn good. Yeah. And I think that one's in the Chaos deck, because I think that's a Nurgle right
there. Okay.
Yeah. You can also see Dark Ritual, which we mentioned earlier. Chromatic Lantern. The last was Guilds of Ravnica, so not too long ago, but Chromatic Lantern is a really good card. I think it's somewhere around like $4 or $5, so like it's not necessarily expensive. It's not one of those like expensive reprints that we've been needing for a long time, but just the more Chromatic Lanterns that you can see, the better.
If you're playing a casual 3 to 5 color deck, you just want to have that in there. Once you start getting to be like actual CDH, you probably want to figure out whether you want a 3-mana mana rock in your deck or not.
Yeah.
But that one is a really good one to start. Like, I think all my 5-color decks have it.
In the Forces of the Imperium deck, we have Reconnaissance Mission, which is the whenever a creature deals combat damage, you draw a card. That one's a really good one. Necron Dynasties is a really gross deck. It's got a lot of good cards. So Living Death is one that we have not seen since Modern M25 or Masters 25. Each player exiles all creatures from their graveyard and sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards they exiled onto the battlefield. So it's a really weird, like, switch around. And it's really nice for the Necrons because you're wanting to put a lot of stuff in your graveyard. You're milling cards all the time, so then you just...
They have a lot of unearthed cards that come out of the bin, so the stuff that you bring in, you can just throw all that in, then unearth them after.
Caged Sun. I didn't expect that.
This is a monocolor artifact theme deck, so Caged Sun works really well for that.
I just didn't
because you're doubling up on all your black mana there.
Yeah. It's a really good card for the deck. I just didn't necessarily expect it. Like, we haven't seen a reprint of Caged Sun since 2014. It was in the mystery boosters, but Commander 2014. And speaking of when we were talking about the Necron lore, the Caged Sun art is the visage of that trapped god that they're using for their power source. It is every art in this set is just the essence of metal.
What they did with the art was really cool. They commissioned a bunch of art to be brand new for the set, but they also took some art that was unused concept art for locations and stuff that they've just been using internally over at Games Workshop for a while. So you have some art that is new to even Warhammer fans. And then you also have some art that has been used in previous codexes. And one of my favorite cards uses a piece of art from one of the like long-standing artists that was doing stuff for Warhammer all the way back in the beginning.
Yeah. Moving on from the reprints and going on to some of like the newer cards that we're going to see. So starting with the Forces of the Imperium. So you're going to see the Commander Inquisitor Greyfax. Inquisitor Greyfax, I don't necessarily know if I would run that one or if I would run the secondary commander, Marnius Calgar. Inquisitor Greyfax is 1 and then Esper colors, so white, blue, black for a 3/3 human Inquisitor, legendary creature. Vigilance and then Unquestionable Wisdom. Other creatures you control get +1/+0 and have Vigilance. And then Hunt for Heresy, 1 and tap. Tap target creature and opponent controls. Investigate. I don't necessarily know why. I have never, like, at least myself, been a huge fan of Investigate as a mechanic. But I do know that there are a lot of good cards for Investigate. I don't know if it's in here, but there's one that's whenever a creature attacks you, you investigate. Whenever you sack a clue, you draw a card. And then I know that there is one that says whenever you sack a clue off of its ability, you draw a card. But I know there's one that I think does the same thing essentially, or like you just draw 2 essentially, because it draws you a card whenever you sack one of them.
This being a good like tapper in the command zone is solid. Investigate, allowing you to sink in your mana and turning that into cards later is decent. I think it would be a fine commander even without the Investigate. The Investigate's just a nice bonus.
I think my favorite one for this one is Marnius Calgar. 2 Esper colors. It is a 3/5 Astartes Warrior. Double strike. Master Tactician. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. And then Chapter Master. For 6 mana, you create 2/2 white Astartes Warrior creature tokens with Vigilance. I think I really like this one just because it's a token deck. I have always liked putting a giant board of tokens, and especially because the 6 mana ability is not it's not a tap ability, so you can activate it as many times as you want. So you can go cool, make 2 tokens, and then draw a card. Make 2 tokens, draw a card. Granted, it's not for every token that you create, it's just for every instance of tokens that you create. So if you have multiple things where you create a token and then you create another token, but they're 2 separate abilities, you'll draw 2 cards. but only if there are 2 separate abilities. If you're creating 5 tokens all at the same time, you're still only going to draw 1 card.
So you just want to find multiple instances of ways to make tokens.
Yeah, you want to stack it so that you do anything and then you go, cool, token, 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 token.
Both these cards remind me of old like Shards of Alara era where the commanders weren't super broken. They were just fun build arounds. These ones are very like kind of good stuffy where you have a good pin line of do some tokens or do some combat stuff and build around it, but not necessarily a here is the deck. Here are the 99 cards that you need to go with this deck, and you don't really have options. You can kind of play around with this and customize your army how you want to.
Yeah. As far as some of the other cards that we are going to be seeing in here, something that I really like is Vexillus Praetor. 3 and a white for a 3/4 Custodes Warrior, Flash, Vigilance, and then commanders you control have protection from everything. Now, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I obviously it works, but for me reading that, it's like, well, if they have protection from everything, they should have protection from Vexillus Praetor's effect. But I think it's because it's a static ability that it's not necessarily
correct.
Like it's not an act, it's not targeting, and protection protects you from targeting.
Protection protects you from damage,
yep.
enchanting, equipping, being blocked by, and targeting. So if it's not trying to do any of those things, it'll get around it. So Wrath of God gets around protection pretty much all the time.
I think this is going to be a good card to play in those like Boros. Well, no, you can't play it in a Boros equipment deck because if you're playing a Voltron deck, you can't use that.
Yep.
Because you can't equip anything. So I'm not necessarily sure where it's going to slot in, but commanders having protection from everything is really good. Just being
upgrading them to Progenitus.
Yeah. I mean, just being able to go cool, playing this in a deck where it's a combo related to your commander, you can just go, cool, I need to give it protection.
Think of its commanders. So if you have partners, those are really good. If those partners care about getting in for damage because they can't be blocked by anything now.
Yeah.
So that's a white card that's saying, hey, my commanders are unblockable.
We also have some miracles in this one. This deck seems to have a sub-theme of miracles. I think there's like 4 or 5 in the deck. So one of them is Zephyrim, if you want to.
Yeah, so this one has the squad mechanic, which is new for this set. As an additional cast cost a spell, you may pay whatever the squad costs. In this case is 2, any number of times. When this creature enters the battlefield, create that many tokens that are copies of it. So it's kind of like a multi-kicker that makes copies of this creature. Zephyrim is 3 and a white for a 3/3 flying vigilance, and it has miracle. With the miracle, yes, you can pay the squad cost off of the miracle. So you can go to draw your card for the turn, see that it's this, reveal it, pay its miracle cost, and then tap out for squad. So you could have like 5 copies of these 3/3 flying vigilance that you tapped out for, which is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other cards in the specifically Imperium deck that you were thinking about talking about?
Not too much. A lot of these decks I'm kind of going in blind. There's some cards that I saw the art that I'm really excited for. But a lot of these I'm going to open up the decks and just experience for the first time as they're coming in. So this weekend being able to sit down across from people and jam a couple games,
and suddenly they play something and you're like, wait, what was that?
Yeah, what's going on there? So that's part of the fun when we have any commander decks coming out. I'll usually try to do that once or twice. This one especially, I'm like, I'll read the face commanders, I'll read what's going on, and some other stuff's cool, but it's a really cool feeling being able to go, we're all 4 of us are playing different decks and we're going to discover things as we're playing against each other.
So moving on to the Tyranid Swarm with the commander, the Swarm Lord. 3 and then teamer colors, so that is green, blue, and red for a 5/5 Tyranid. So they've made Tyranid an actual creature type.
They didn't make them slivers or anything, even though they got a hive mind kind of thing. No.
If they had made them slivers, that would have been busted. So rapid regeneration, the Swarm Lord enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. And then Xenos Cunning. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, draw a card. So that's really good. And that's like part of the reason that we were talking about the Ozolith was going up is because whenever a creature dies, you can move all the counters onto the Ozolith, and then from the Ozolith onto another creature, which then when that dies, you draw a card, you move it back, then you move it. So you can essentially just infinitely cycle all of your counters around.
In red and green, you have some decent amount of sack outlets. I'm very happy that they did not make this Jund, because if this had black and allowed a lot more, which has the most amount of sack outlets, that would have been a little too busted. I love this because now we have a really cool teamer identity that isn't just elementals.
So the secondary commander is Magus Lucia Kane. 1 and teamer colors for a 1/1 human Tyranid wizard. Spiritual leader. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And then Psychic Stimulus. Tap. Add 2 colorless mana. When you next cast a spell with X in its mana cost, or activate an ability with X in its activation cost this turn, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this is essentially like you go to cast a Hydra, and you get 2 Hydras.
Yep.
Gross.
Double fireball.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can combine this with the other Hydra commander.
With Zakara?
I think that one is. I think that one has black in it.
Yeah, that's Sultai.
Yeah. So sadly, you can't combine it with that. You can't have 2 of the X things in one. But this one is still really good, especially because you get that blue.
Just jam them both in a Yidra stack. Have fun.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. No.
And then,
yeah, definitely.
Then whiff half the time because you put a lot of X cards into your deck, and that's fine.
Yeah. So I think I like the Swarmlord more than Magus. I think this, as far as like the teamer, like the Tyranid identity.
Yep.
But being able to have that as far as like the X is really cool.
I like that they both do counter stuff. This one's definitely X matters, which is something that always happy to have new commanders for. I like there's a more generic counters. The Tyranid art's great.
All of the Tyranid arts are so good.
They're just weird, like Tremors meets xenomorph looking kind of aliens. If you played like the Halo games growing up, very similar to a lot of the monsters that you're facing in there. Just really cool art. So if you're new to the Warhammer stuff, but just like weird, like sci-fi pulp blockbusters, then everything that Warhammer's throwing at you, you're gonna love.
Speaking of cards with X in their cost, would you like to?
Sure. So this is Turvigan, X 1 and a green Tyranid, 0/0, but it has Ravenous. This creature enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. So if I just pay 1 and a green, it's just going to come in as 0/0. But if I pay anything into X, it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's got Trample and Spawn Termagants. Whenever Turvigan deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens.
So gross.
So there's a old card called Michaeloth that was doing like a similar thing where you were making that many sapperlings. This is scalable and has trample. The trample is huge.
Yeah. Well, and so with Ravenous, you at least have to put 3 mana into this card for it to survive, because it will enter as 1 if you pay 3 mana.
Yep.
Because just casting it for 2 mana, it will ETB and then immediately die as a state-based action. But the fact that it has X, like even you use that secondary commander, and then suddenly you have 2 of them. And
if you tap out later, you get that refuel, and you can be digging deeper in for cards. So
combine that with stuff like we were talking about with the Ozolith.
Yep.
And you can put all the counters on there onto Turvigon. Maybe you have a flying counter. Maybe you have like 3 or 4 more 1/1 counters, and then suddenly Turvigon just becomes this like ultimate boss of like probably even more scary than the commander at some points. So moving on to the Ruinous Powers, Abaddon the Despoiler. Would you like to?
Sure. So this is 2, a black, a blue, and a red. So Grixis colors for a 5/5 legendary creature, Astartes Warrior with Trample. The ability is Mark of Chaos Ascendant. During your turn, spells you cast from your hand with mana value X or less have Cascade, where X is the total amount of life your opponents have lost this turn. So the idea with this deck is that you are going to get into combat. You're going to deal a bunch of damage. You might want to make Abaddon unblockable. The trample is going to help a little bit, but you want to be dealing some amount of damage to your opponents first before you're casting some big things. Once you start doing that, then you start casting your big things, trying to cascade down and do that kind of
you
stuff.
swing with Abaddon. You maybe get in for, like, if somebody blocks, you get in for 3 damage. So then the next spell that I cast that is 3 or less will cascade.
Yep.
Yeah, that's...
I already like this because there's not just one way to go with it. You can go, let's go combat. You could go, I'm thinking pingers.
Yep. And there is the Pinger tribal one is the in the Swarm Lord, but because it's blue and red, you can definitely slot it into.
Just throw it into there because you got Tim
absolutely.
and Tom that you just go cool, tap
bang,
those,
bang.
deal a bunch.
So secondary commander is Belakor, the Dark Master. 3 and then Grixis colors for a 6/5 Demon Noble, flying Prince of Chaos. When Belakor, the Dark Master, enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. And then Lord of Torment, whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. That last ability is definitely something that we see with, like, dragons, because I know there is a dragon that came out pretty recently that say whenever a dragon ETBs, you deal damage equal to its power.
Yep.
And then it's definitely a demonic effect of you draw X cards and lose X life. It just happens to be related to the amount of demons that you have. So definitely a demon tribal.
I'm glad that we have Demon Tribal in Grixis colors rather than just mono black is what we've had in the past. And that's okay, but letting them kind of venture out a little bit because you have really cool Grixis ones from Alara, you have Demon Dragons, you have all the demons from New Capenna. You could throw Xander in that deck.
A card that is really fun from this deck is Plague Drone. I say fun, but it's definitely 3 and a black for a 3/3 demon with flying. It has Rot Fly. If an opponent would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. So if I go, cool, I'm going to gain 200 life. I have Plague Drone on the board and I go, no, you're not. You're going to lose 200 life. So it's like people were mad about Rampaging Ferocidon because it stopped you from losing life. Or it stopped you from gaining life. But now it's worse. You're going to lose life instead.
I'm just sad that, like, I get the Plague Drone is the guy that's on top of the fly, but it's not a demon insect because you have this just giant...
The guy on top of it,
You got a giant locust and no insect tribal. Come on. Mazarek needs it.
So lastly, we have the deck that is slated to be the most powerful, which is the Necrons deck, or Necron Dynasty. So as the commander for this, let's see if I can pronounce this. Zarek, okay. Zarek, the Silent King, 1 and then triple black for a 3/4 legendary artifact creature Necron. You'll find, I think, most, if not all, of the creatures in this deck are artifacts as well. It has flying, and then My Will Be Done. Whenever Sarek, the Silent King, attacks, mill 3 cards, and then you may put an artifact creature or vehicle from among those milled cards into your hand. So at least it's not onto the battlefield, but it's definitely you're milling your artifact creatures, you're milling your vehicles, and then putting some of them back into your hand while still adding to your graveyard so that you can then resurrect them later. Because this is a mono black deck, it's got resurrection in it. That's it. That's one of the whole sub themes.
Yeah. It's too bad about his drawback though, that you can't talk while you have him out at all. Because he's the Silent King.
Oh.
So we have Imhotep the Stormlord. See, that's what would happen if he was in the Acorn set. 2 black and a black for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature Necron. Ability Pharaon. When Faeron. Whenever one or more artifact cards leaves your graveyard, create 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature tokens. And Grand Strategist. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains Menace until end of turn. So just straightforward. Does really well with the Unearth mechanic, which there are a ton of cards with that in this set. And you just get a lot of bonus from that stuff. And you also get to go, cool, you get in there, get a little bit more power there. Just,
I mean, it's also like the first ability itself for whenever you bring an artifact out, you get 2 more artifacts. Like you combine that with stuff like
you get 2, not just 1.
Yeah,
okay,
it's 2.
I said the words, and even then, I'm just like, okay, this is just fine. Nope, 2 is big. 2 is
whenever
an army.
you bring an artifact back, instead of 1, you get 3. With anything that has to deal with artifacts, ETBs, or just the amount of artifacts that you control, like that is a very good way to gain some value pretty quickly.
Did they put Marionette Master in this set? Because if they didn't, oh my god, that just goes right in this, right?
It does. Yeah, definitely. Oh man, it's been a hot minute since I've even thought about Marionette Master. So as far as some cards that we're going to see from this deck specifically, one of the really cool ones that I like is the Scepter of Eternal Glory. 4 mana for a legendary artifact, add 1 mana of any color, so pretty decent, and then add 3 mana of any color. Activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. So definitely enticing you to play a monocolored deck, not necessarily black, because it makes mono mana of any color. But you could definitely run this in decks that are not black. You just have to make sure that you at least have 3 basic lands of like any one color.
I would never put this in a like 3 to 5 color deck, but in a 1, maybe 2, if the 2 color deck is like main on one and a splash of the other. This is basically a Thran Dynamo that taps for color mana, and that is potentially super powerful. I love the sagas. There's a saga for each of the
each one of these has a really cool
telling
saga.
like the story, because like the wars that have been going on in Warhammer have been taking place for thousands of years, so there's this long big story of battles and all that kind of stuff.
It has an artifact creature that gives everything else hexproof. So it's a Crypto Thrall, 4 mana for a 3/3 construct, 4 colorless mana. Other artifact creatures you control have hexproof. That's gross to have that in the deck.
All right.
So
let's
kind
hit
of
our
moving
favorites.
on. Huh?
Let's hit our favorites.
Yeah, I'm heading on to the favorites.
All
so I know for me, my favorite card in the set is Chaos Mutation.
Is that you there?
Yes.
Okay.
So Chaos Mutation is in the Chaos deck, the Ruinous Powers deck. It is 3, a blue, and a red for an instant. Exile any number of target creatures controlled by different players. For each creature exiled this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield, and then put the rest onto the bottom in a random order. So you're going to exile any number of target creatures controlled by different players. So you could exile 1 from each person. So you can't necessarily exile your whole board. You can only do 1 from your own board, and then you have to do others. But essentially, it's polymorph or transmogrify, but for everybody. You just go, cool. I need to get rid of that creature. You're going to get something cool, but I just need to get rid of that. Or specifically for me, because I love polymorph effects. It is just...
I don't want mana more than regular polymorph, so I like that.
It's 5. And it's something that is definitely chaos themed. You are definitely going to get a lot of chaos out of that.
You're going to have some fun game ending moments where you go, cool, polymorph your commander, and then turn it into something even worse, and then you lose the game, which is great.
So your favorite card?
My favorite is a reprint. So it's a Farseek, 1 in a green, sorcery, search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, put it onto battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Reason why this one is my favorite, we've had a couple different pieces of art. I think the main one is like on Ravnica, where he's got a little spyglass and is looking at the city. That's cool. We still have a spyglass, but this is a Tyranid mutant on a motorcycle, looking out at whatever weird world they just landed on and surveying there. and it's just got totally different vibe from normal Magic. Normal Magic usually doesn't try to have more modern looking vehicles on that, and so this is literally card games on motorcycles, which I just think is fantastic. So like between this Farseek, they have some secret layers that are doing some motorcycle stuff there. I think it's really cool that you can have like your bike tribal deck.
Yeah, this is definitely something that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
So as moving on to like what we think are like the most powerful cards in the set, I personally think that Biotransference from the Necron deck is going to be very good. It is 2 black for an enchantment. Creatures you control are artifacts in addition to their other types, and the same is true of creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. And then whenever you cast an artifact, you lose a life and create a 2/2 Necron warrior artifact creature token. Even without that second ability, if it just had that first ability, I think it would be just as powerful. Like the second ability makes it really, really good. But just the fact of like being a Maskwood Nexus, turning everything, even stuff that is outside of the game, or like outside of your battlefield, into artifacts. So like anything with affinity, if like you play, what is it, your Microsynth Golem, all of your stuff gains affinity. It's definitely breakable, and I think that it's I've heard a couple of people talking about trying to play this in Legacy.
Liquid Metal Toke and Liquid Metal Coating see a lot of play, where those just enable different infinite combo kind of things going on. Usually those are in like red and blue, so having an edge into black is a little tough. But
and granted, it is 4 mana.
It is 4 mana, but black also had a lot of really good cards in Mirrodin with like Disciple of the Vault and the Nim and that kind of stuff. So you can go all in and turn a lot of your artifact enablers, which usually the drawback is they themselves aren't artifacts, so they don't get to trigger off themselves. But if you find a way to go, I make a copy of a artifact Disciple of the Vault, and then now it's an artifact, and now you have this like kind of infinite. Yeah.
Pretty gross. So the card that you think it is one of the more powerful cards of the set.
This is the Golden Throne. Before we get to anything here, you'll notice that the artist credit here is Games Workshop. I forget what the name of this artist is, but this is one of the older artists for Warhammer Codexes who has passed away, so that's why it's credited that way. So this is like a piece of art that if you've been playing Warhammer for years, you've seen this.
You have seen this art.
So it's 4 mana for a legendary artifact. If you would lose the game, instead exile the Golden Throne, and your life total becomes 1. And you can tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana in any combination of colors. So not only do you get a get out of jail free, my kind of Angel's Grace, extra life kind of thing, but you also get to just upgrade any of your creatures into a Black Lotus.
Well, and if you combine this with stuff like the Mirror Gallery, and you make a bunch of copies of Golden Throne, if you would lose the game, instead of exile Golden Throne,
you choose which one.
Yeah, you just choose one of them. So you essentially create infinite like get out of jail free cards. I think we're missing something, which is the flavor text for that last one, which is 1,000 souls die every day.
Yes.
So a little bit more specific on the Golden Throne itself. The Golden Throne is the seat of the Emperor of mankind, of the Imperium. And in order to keep the Emperor alive, the Imperium needs to feed the Emperor 1,000 souls every day just to keep him alive. And the reason that they need to keep him alive is because he is the one who is creating interstellar travel. Without him, their warp gates do not work. So if he dies, they're boned. So it is, as far as like the actual lore of Warhammer, the Golden Throne is really cool and really interesting. So like that 1,000 souls die every day, being linked to a sacrifice a creature. I just wish it was a sacrifice any number of creatures.
Yeah.
Because it would be super flavorful to make 1,000 tokens and then sacrifice 1,000 tokens. But that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, make it 1,000 turns, and You might be able to because you have that arcane life support to kind of keep you going.
I don't think we need to have a 1,000 turn commander game. No, thank you. Alrighty,
Keep it to 100.
Yeah, so that is going to be it for this first episode of the DMcast. This one's probably a little bit longer just because we had a lot to talk about. Please, if you haven't already, go and follow us on all of our social medias. So at DM Comics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and then at Double Midnight on TikTok. We're going to be starting to post a lot more, post every day, at least something, some snippet of something every day. And if you haven't as well, because we are talking about Magic today, we do have Magic at DM Comics on Facebook. We do have a whole subset of groups. We have one for Magic, one for Yu-Gi-Oh!, one for Pokemon, one for D&D.
One for comics.
Yep, one for comics. So if you're interested in any of that, please go and follow us there for any more information. Also, if you have any collectibles that you want to sell to us, please make sure to set up an appointment online. You can head over to our website at dmcomics.com/sell. We take in all sorts of stuff. We take comic books, Magic cards, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and that is going to be the best way to know that you have your time set aside for us to buy the stuff. And as a last thing, just a thank you to all of you guys for listening. And please make sure to like, please make sure to comment, please make sure to give your support for this, because we are going to be doing this bi-weekly starting from now.
Nothing except for welcome back to the DMcast.
Welcome back. All right, we will see you.
Yeah.